Good morning. Today we are going to speak about PPP method, and PPP of course stands for Presentation Practice Production in ESL methodology, and this method can be characterized by this kind of common sense that first we need to give some new information, then we need to recycle it, and then to practice it in the real environment of language. But there are a lot of questions that I usually ask. Is it panacea to everything? Is it a medicine to every problem that a lesson methodology can actually have? And some people doubt it, and they say that it can be actually not used and the lesson can be absolutely successful. So what do you think about it? Although so-called PPP method was developed for the ESL teaching, it can be used with any school subject, first of all, if adapted properly. So I mean here PPP can be used as the universal kind of tool, and let's not talk only about ESL classrooms, right? For example, you have geography topic. On geography lesson, let's say you're learning some kind of political geography, let's say types of governments in Europe. So you would do basically the same as you would do during the ESL lesson. You would first present these types of government, then you would recycle them in this kind of, let's say, restricted practice, and then they would do kind of freer practice. And however, can, let's say, PPP be eliminated and used? Not here, so we will switch to something different. Well, yes, however, you will still use some kind of parts of it. Let's say you can use TTT, that stands for test, teach, test. Also very nice approach that I'm using a lot. Because let's say all these approaches are somehow connected, and they are in the same field of communicative language teaching approach. That is CLT, and PPP is a part of it. And PPP was established as that major communicative approach after a long time of different approaches, that were used. Let's say there were approaches like grammar, translation, when people just translated something and they should have learned it by just, let's say, translation. And we now think that it's kind of odd, but however, let's say 150, 200 years ago, it was the major approach. And I would not say that it's absolutely rubbish and it can be used. For example, I have one student that it feels absolutely happy with it, and if with another teacher they usually had 4 lessons per month as the usual basis, and even 3 when the man could not attend the private lesson because of some business things. Now I'm using this grammar translation approach. I have now let's say 8 lessons, 7 lessons per month, so I doubled it. Why? Because I just used the approach that is perfect for him, and I have never listened this kind of methodologies. They say only communicative approach, no first language, never think about it. But I doubt, no, I think that every approach is perfect in itself if it matches, the students. Going on, let's say, what about PPP and how to change it? I think the best substitute for PPP is TTT, as I have already mentioned it. This is teach, test, teach. It goes like that. First of all, you make a kind of stress for your students by giving them, let's say, a really serious task without any preparation. I mean, any sufficient pre-teaching to see what they know and what they don't. And they would, yes, feel kind of stress. But after that, during that process, you could grasp the main problems that the person has, or the persons, the people, your students have, so that after that you could teach them on the second stage all the necessary things that they lack. And after that you would test them once again in the productions, let's say, stage, as that would be called in PPP approach. However, it's called test, second test part of the lesson in TTT approach. And I think this model is very, let's say, working when you're working with the middle and intermediates and upper levels. They're perfectly fine with that. Other cool methodology to use is the method of a free interview, and I think everyone that are intermediate plus are perfect with that, especially upper intermediates. We have a kind of this free interview ESL lesson and restricted interview ESL lesson. I would describe it as that, and how this PPP can be really broken in this approach, and what can be brought instead. What does it mean free interview ESL lesson? It means that if you go through the book, they may get bored because when they use the book in the past, they were bored because everything is so structured and they think where is the active thing. For example, some people really want the hardest thing in the beginning of the lesson, but some of them want it, like, in the middle or at the end. So it means that, well, the book doesn't bring it. The book has very clear structure and you should follow it if you're a teacher that follows the book. And some people even do not somehow modify it. Well, it's up to you, but in this kind of free interview approach that I'm using, it's not, of course, mine. It's just, I wanted to say that I use it, so my approach. You can go wherever you want. Let's say you prepare the list of words, if it is more based on vocabulary lesson, you have the word list for 20 words, and after that, you insert them into the question on the topic that is being discussed. Let's say, I worked in one car company as the English teacher, twice or 3 times a week, doesn't matter. And of course, they were interested in this leakage of information about the petrol usage, petrol consumption, right? But we never had it in the book. So we had a perfect discussion on this topic that really bothers them, using all the 20-25 words from the book, because I just inserted them into our interview part of the lesson, that like 50 minutes, a lot, right? The majority of the lesson was about a free interview, and they always re-asked me, what does this word mean? Because I did it so that the question that was asked had this word as the key to understand the question. So they always wrote it down, they always tried to memorize it, because without it they would never answer my question, or they would be a kind of hardship anyway. So I think it's working. Restricted interview means that actually you prepare a little bit more for these questions. However, I also use without no preparation interview. It means that yes, I prepare the vocabulary, let's say, I prepare the grammar that needs to be recycled, but I never prepare the questions. I just have it in my head, because I know the psychology of the very exact student, and I know what is to be expected, what answers I would hear. And that means that I don't need to prepare it. Some people prepare like a mind map, what should be asked and how we should go. Well, it depends on you. I don't think that going sometimes by so restricted sequence is a nice thing, because, well, sometimes, yes, you may go a bit off the road, but nevertheless, it would be more interesting for you and the students, especially here in Eastern Europe, when everything is, people are kind of a bit skeptical about teachers and education in the whole. So in this interview, you're kind of breaking this PPP rule, because you are presenting the new words always throughout the lesson, and you don't do that on one stage. Then you make a production and practice actually during every question, every answer, and so it's kind of mixed. And this interview approach, be it free interview or restricted interview approach, is working very nice in my opinion. The question was actually interesting, that some people, one student actually asked me that, look, yes, you, on your group lessons, you are using a lot of communication approach, but I don't think it's really working. And this is exactly the question that, how you should answer it. Now, my question that before, when I was had been teaching, I really thought that, communicative approach is the only one, but now I think that this translation approach is also working, especially for people after 40, when they need to understand things first. I think also it works with starters and elementaries, when, let's say, sometimes translation is also okay, because they need to grow confidence and some understanding of the clear mind map of the language. Not mind map, I mean structure of the language overall. So it really advises you somehow to practice and let's say go deep into that. So thank you so much for your attention. We are going to speak about different methods in the next video. Enjoy your Sunday evening.